to you. Today's a beautiful day in New Mexico and it's very, very cold. So I hope you're all keeping warm today, this morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. And I have a very special guest with me today, Angela Hollowell, who is a visual storyteller. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about what she does. She is a visual storyteller who focuses on community centered perspective to promote environmental sustainability, peace building, human rights, and art. She has a video podcast called Honey and Hustle on YouTube, where she covers creative entrepreneurship, social media strategy, and visual storytelling. She has her own company called And H Studio, a creative digital media agency based in Durham, North Carolina, where she works with and supports diverse organizations throughout the South, the United States. So, welcome, Angela, and I'm really happy to have you here with us this morning. So, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing good. I'm also staying warm here on the East Coast. North Carolina, it is chilly today, but it is a beautiful
Oh,
day, so I'm
yeah.
hoping to get outside a little bit later.
Yeah, me too, me too. I have to go out later. I've become a little bit of a hermit because of
Oh,
COVID and then just staying away from sick people,
yeah,
wearing a mask.
yeah.
Anyway, so I wanted to dive into my first question. What encouraged you to focus on environmental justice and human rights in your company?
Yeah, so when I was in college, I was really interested in healthcare and healthcare as a human right. And during my master's degree, as I started to kind of dive deeper into what affects the health outcomes of communities and populations, not only here in the United States, but across the world, one thing that kind of kept coming up as kind of an interlacing theme was our relationship with the environment and where we live and how that impacts the health outcomes that we have. So in the United States, we live in a country where your health outcomes are largely dictated by your zip code, which to me is completely unacceptable, right? So when we talk about environmental justice, for me, it's not just sustainability or recycling or composting or renewable energy or food sustainability. It's about how all of those things affect our relationship with each other, how they affect our relationship to have healthy lives, live healthy lives in livable cities, and truly how we're able to make an impact on the world based on the environment that is around us, right? So, those are all things that really fueled me um, in exploring environmental justice and human rights through documentary storytelling and visual storytelling, because I think it's everybody has a unique story around the South. I think people are not a monolith, and exploring what people's natural environment is really fascinating to me and can really be impactful and moving. And I think I was noticing as I was kind of diving deeper into my studies that even though I have never lived on the West Coast, even though I've never lived in the Pacific Northwest, even though never lived in the North, there are certain elements of people's relationship with where they live that I can identify with. And I think it's important to tell these stories to bridge the gaps that we see in the I won't say the fight, but definitely for the forward movement towards health and safety and security in this country. So
Yeah, um, I think that's incredibly important work, and um, I don't have exposure to people who are doing this kind of work besides you. I think I need to get out more, but I know I know what you're talking about, but I don't know many people that are doing the work you do. So it's incredibly important. And so you just focus on the southern part of the United States because it's an area that you know well. So
correct. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so you know of all the problems intimately that are happening in the South, right?
Right.
So yeah, so you have the West Coast has a lot. I mean, the whole United States has a problem,
Yeah.
environmental. I think one thing that I think everybody in the United States knows about is the water crisis in Flint, Michigan.
Mm-hmm. And
And
now in
I don't
Jackson,
think
Mississippi,
that's been completely solved yet.
no.
People living in Flint are still having to deal with filthy water, having to buy bottled water. And do you see that improving at all? All they have to do is switch the water over, but the damage has already been done.
Correct.
So,
I mean, like it's so that problem in Flint, Michigan, we're now seeing in Jackson, Mississippi, right? So I think again, when it comes
right, right.
to these stories, unfortunately, while they may be in a different geographical landscape, we're still seeing them play out in other ways in other areas throughout the United States. So I think last I heard, um, the United Nations did declare that a human rights crisis. And so that brings it up a little bit in terms of what can be done legally to address that from a local government standpoint. And I think charges have been brought, but ultimately, I think with Flint, Michigan, the issue was with the pipes. They refused to invest in new pipes. So the lead from really old, rusty pipes was getting in people's faucets and waters and things like that. So it's a really, it essentially is an infrastructure issue at this point. You know, how are we going to fix the infrastructure? How long is it going to take? How much we're going to have to pay? And that's not to include, the back pay that these people are facing because now they have a health issue as it relates to having lead in their water, having lead contaminated water, right? Not being able to bathe properly, not being able to drink properly, not being able to cook properly. So um, I really do hope that we see the light at the end of the tunnel with this, but really, ultimately, what it is going to take for this to prevent things like this from continuing to happen is a focus on health and putting people's health and safety first, and really investing in the infrastructure that we need to keep people safe and healthy.
Right. The continuing problem that we're going to have for a while. I wanted to go on to your podcast, Honey
Mhm.
and Hustle. I've gotten some comments that people really like the title of your podcast, Honey and Hustle. So it's like a nice rhythm to it.
Yeah.
But so you're a host of this podcast, Honey and Hustle, and you're also a founder of a creative digital media agency. So
Hmm.
how are you with your time management? Do you have a team that works with you?
Yeah, so Andrew Studio was the company that I started first, which is a digital media company. And Honey and Hustle was something I started as a pandemic podcast, a pandemic project, if you will. And it started in March of 2020. So for me, I already had like the equipment, right? So it felt natural to move that into doing something with that equipment that didn't involve clients. That was just like my own original thing. And so that's kind of how Honey and Hustle came to be. So originally it was just me. Now I don't have the capacity for it to be just me. So I do have an editor that I'm working with to help me scale up that project and to be consistent with posting episodes. Um, as people who are looking at the podcast right now, it's in a bit of a state of transition. With I kind of took a break about halfway through this season, so I also do it in seasons, which helps. So I don't feel the need to like post every day of the year, which would be a lot. So I
Yeah,
kind of break it up that way. And again, having an editor is really helping, and just building systems that help um, the podcast move more consistently and quickly from start to finish. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm definitely not perfect with time management. I'm still working on that, but we try every day to just do our best.
yeah. Podcasting is a lot of work. You mentioned having seasons. Are you having an upcoming season? Are
So
you? Is it
yeah,
on now? Are you working on it now?
yeah, we're working on it now. So we're in the middle of season three.
Okay.
My goal for season three was 50 episodes. We're at about 22, 23 that have been released. So we still have about 27, maybe more, that we're going to be releasing this season. So hopefully we can get that started up at the beginning of the new year as we're about to start recording again and getting out episodes. So yeah.
Yeah. What
Yeah.
is your ultimate goal with your podcast?
That's a good question. I think originally it just started as a labor of love. It just started as me wanting to create a platform for people who may be in a same or similar position as me, early stage entrepreneurs who wanted to go full time or who were wanting to take their side hustle more seriously and scale, and get insights from people who have been there and done that. But now it's kind of like, okay, I put a lot of time into this. I'm investing in editors. I'm investing my time and resources to do this. What does it look like as a business? And I really feel like to be consistent with a podcast and to be committed to anything like that, you really do have to look at it as a business. Like, what is the most efficient and effective way for this to function and for us to create a quality product? So I think now it has shifted really to be like my lofty goal is for it to be like a boutique and premier source of entrepreneurship news in North Carolina. Small business entrepreneurship specifically, not just Apple and Google and whoever else is coming to the triangle, but really just who are people on the ground that are making these communities what they are, right? Because 9 times out of 10, let's say you reach out to me after this, you're like, hey, Angela, I'm coming to Charlotte, North Carolina. I would love some food recommendations or places to go. Chances are, if I tell you, yeah, you should check out Chick-fil-A, you're going to be like, what? Chick-fil-A is a chain. I can get that anywhere, like I want a real local small business, to visit that's unique and
Right,
that
right.
embodies that place. And so that's what people think about. And I really want the podcast to be a source of that type of thing.
That's
Yeah.
great. I mean, nobody wants to go to a big chain restaurant if they're visiting another state or not
Yeah.
another country.
No.
You want to
Yeah.
have the local food, like what Anthony Bourdain was
Yeah.
doing when he was traveling. I
Yeah.
love what he did. He just met the locals and he ate with them.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I just really miss him. But anyway, so you mentioned documentary storytelling. Are you working on a documentary now?
I
By
am. I am. I'm working on a documentary featuring Urban Cycling Group, which is a Black-led cycling group out of Richmond, Virginia. They started kind of during the pandemic and have grown to be this incredible community organization for people at all stages of cycling, which is awesome. So I'm really excited to tell that story and get that out there pretty soon.
how did you find that story? They're in Virginia. Did they get in touch with you? Or,
I found them, but I can't remember how. Maybe social media, because that's how we find everybody these days. But I think I
yeah,
came across them and I felt like their story was really unique and what they were doing was really cool. But I didn't see a lot of media surrounding them. Um, so I just kind of reached out to them and said, hey, is this something you'd be interested in talking with me? Um, and we just met virtually a couple times, and then finally I went up to Richmond and was able to meet them in person and see them do a ride and that sort of thing. So it was really cool to see that relationship build over time through this project. So yeah.
right. Um, are you planning to pitch it to any studios, or are you going to
um
release it independently?
Yeah, I think releasing it independent, as this is my first major like short film project that I'm doing. Um, I think there's a lot to be learned from this first project. There's a lot more that I would like to learn and do an experiment. And again, like my goal with storytelling is not necessarily how can I make the most money the fastest way possible? How can I monetize everything that I'm doing? Yeah, do I want to make money off it? Yes, but in the right way and in a way that also benefits them and the communities that they serve too. So really this film for me is about learning and experimenting and growing and doing something that I'm really interested in, number one. And then number two, how can we leverage this to gain awareness around cycling and the benefits of cycling, and the benefits of cycling in minority communities, the benefits of cycling infrastructure, and promote that, and get that out there in larger ways. Yes, across the South, but also for anyone that wants to see it.
Right. No, with now our smartphones and computers and video games, I feel like a lot of people are just inside and not exploring outside and being active outside. So I think that's a real problem in our society now,
Mm-hmm.
especially in poor areas where they're stuck inside if they don't have a yard to play in, or they're playing in the streets where it's more dangerous.
Yeah.
I think that'd be a really interesting documentary. Yeah,
Yes, thank you, thank
yeah,
you.
I look forward to that.
Mhm.
So, Angela, where did your passion for visual storytelling come from? It started in college, right?
Mhm. It
And
did.
you were thinking,
So,
you were thinking about storytelling, that visual storytelling. You were always interested in film since college?
no. So in college, I actually was a Spanish major. And as a part of
Okay.
my degree requirements, I had to do a study abroad trip. And so I went to Spain my sophomore year. And I took my camera phone because that's your best phone, right? Everybody has it in their pocket. And I took my phone and I took some pictures and stuff on my phone. And I got back and my phone factory reset itself. So I have no pictures from that trip, right? And then
Oh,
after that, and there was a girl on the trip who brought a DSLR, like a more professional camera, and was like, "Yeah, I bought this to document my travels and everything because it's more consistent and has more long-term use than like a phone, right? Because you get a new phone every couple of years." And so I was like, "Okay, like I don't ever want to lose my photos again from a major trip or something that's cool to me." So I worked that summer and I bought a camera. So that's kinda how it started. It started as a hobby, and, of course, as I got deeper into my degree and more interested in my grad school career, I was like, "Okay, like, how can I put these 2 together?" And that's kind of where I landed with that.
yeah. So I imagine you majoring in like something like English or something like that. Now that you're in storytelling, visual storytelling. So
Yeah.
are you fluent? Are you fluent in Spanish?
I would love to say that I am, but I definitely don't practice enough to be fluent.
Yeah,
But I'm still pretty decent, like, I can go out of the country and have a good time, and I do that. I think that's the best way for me to stay present is just to be forced to use it all the time. That's how you keep getting
yeah,
better and keep training that muscle, and so, yeah, I'll purposely put myself in situations where I can only speak Spanish, so, yeah.
that's good. That's good. I'm not fluent myself. My parents are, but
Okay,
they only spoke to me in English growing up because of my deafness. I had to
okay,
learn English growing up, so
okay.
yeah. But I read it better than I understand in conversations. I mean, I have a hard enough time in English anyway, so
Mhm.
to be honest, it's very hard for me to understand. So
Yeah,
yeah, that's great.
yeah.
Oh,
Hi, Robert. How are you? Thank you.
I'm not seeing any comments.
I
That's
see
fine.
one from
Oh, hi,
Robert.
Robert.
Yeah.
You
I'm
Spanglish.
Nice,
Yes.
nice.
Yeah, the comments been coming up from in the studio. I have to go to
Okay.
LinkedIn and check them out.
Mm.
Hey, Robert, it's good to see you this morning. Robert is in Alabama, if I remember correctly.
I'm from Alabama. Nice. Okay.
Robert from Alabama, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've known Robert for a couple of years now. We were
Okay.
in a group together and I got to know him there. And he was on my show last month
Okay.
talking
Nice.
about auditing,
Mm.
being an auditor and his podcast.
Okay. Please
So
don't audit me, Robert. I mean, you can, but, please don't.
I never asked my guests to promote their appearance or anything. I should start doing that, huh?
Maybe. That's all good. It's all good.
Yeah,
We're just happy to be
yeah.
here with you,
But
hanging out.
it's also live streaming to YouTube, so you can
Okay.
always check out my channel there, Wanna Write on YouTube.
Gotcha.
And
Yeah.
and so and so Angela,
Mhm.
do you have any plans to expand beyond the South with your work, like throughout the United States? I know the South is quite a big part of the United States.
Right.
Um,
Um, I'm open to it. I specifically just say that I focus on the South as someone who was born in Georgia, raised in Alabama, now living in North Carolina. I'm just a little more intimately familiar with these stories. Um, and I feel just for me personally, it's harder to tell stories that I'm not um, as culturally adept with, right? So A
Yeah.
Native American living in Wyoming or Montana is probably going to have a bit of a different perspective on life and what they need um, in their relationship with the earth than someone from Alabama like Robert. Not that I'm not open to learning, but I definitely see the South and minorities in the South as catalyst for a lot of the change that we see on a national level. So there's also a human rights significance to featuring stories in the South as well. So
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Hey Krista, how are you?
I don't know why they're not coming up on my end here. It's just on LinkedIn. Hi, Krista. Thank you for being here. Christian did that to me recently. Yeah.
Mhm.
Christian is being pain in the ass right now. I don't know why, but
Yeah.
there's that.
Mhm.
So, but no, I always had this idea of wanting to be a storyteller too, but just like going around interviewing different people in the city.
Mm.
Not like what you're seeing on TikTok, you know,
Not like that.
not like that, not like that. I mean, there's these people, I don't know if it's a trend, I've only seen it a few times. Are you on TikTok?
Cosmetically, like I have a TikTok account, but I don't really use
Yeah,
it.
okay. So you don't, okay, so like a few guys, I guess they get donations from their viewers and
Mm,
then they hand it out to people on the street who are homeless or poor, Mexican workers who have food stands or a food stand, taco stand, and they give them like $1,000. And
yeah,
then they randomly go into Walmart and they ask them to do like weird things, like, I need $1 for these chips. I don't have any money. Can you give me $1? And then the person gives them $1, and they says, "No, you were the first person to be kind to me today, so
mm,
I'm gonna give you $500 or $1,000."
okay.
I don't know if it's a trend, but I'm seeing more of it happening.
Yeah, that's
I
not my
don't
favorite.
know what kind of message that sends to people. It tells us there are people out there who
Right.
need help, definitely. Um, But is it more for the people they're helping, or is it more that they're getting attention for themselves? They don't always show themselves on camera, the
Mm,
people giving the money out. So
yeah.
it always makes me wonder, well,
Yeah, it's a mixed bag.
why do
Um,
you have to do it on camera?
yeah,
Because you want to help.
right. I think like there's definitely a difference between like especially in the documentary film world or storytelling world, between your intentions, right? So if your intention is to help people and to help people in need genuinely and to really be community centered in helping people, um, you don't necessarily need to film that, right? And I'm not here to film poverty porn, if you will. That's not what I'm here to do.
Poverty, that's what it is. It's
Yeah,
poverty.
I'm not here to do that. Um, really what it's about is the impact, right? And I think sometimes we as storytellers, visual storytellers, we get so caught up in how do I inject emotion into this? How do I make this emotional, right? And it is an emotional reaction when people are like, man, like I needed this money and somebody just gave me $500 for being nice and being, kind. And that's great. But I think that's a short-lived emotional payoff versus, the impact of a nonprofit, for example, that's doing community-centered work that's helping hundreds of people, right? Alleviate themselves from poverty or alleviate themselves from difficult situations. So I think there's definitely a difference in intention there. It is a form of storytelling. They're getting a reaction, they're getting an emotional reaction, but is it really creating the impact that they think they're showing on a screen? Debatable. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. There was a man, I think he still does it, a man out in Los Angeles. He was just interviewing homeless people, having
Mm,
them share their stories. And he was formerly homeless himself, so
mm,
he knew intimately the experience of being homeless and on the
yeah.
street and how dangerous it is, especially for women on the
Yes.
street. So, but then there started to be complaints about how he was using the money that he was getting to help homeless people. He wasn't giving them money on the street. He wasn't
Mm,
filming any of that. He was just having the conversation with them,
mhm.
which I thought was pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And that's also a catch-22 because, like, we don't if he didn't show that he was giving the money, we don't know how the money he was getting donated was used or
mhm,
whatever. But it's also like if he
yeah,
is not giving them money, if he is not using the money that he's getting for good to help people who are in a situation that he was in at one point, then it's like you are knowingly weaponizing these stories for financial gain and not using them to benefit the people that you're aiming to uplift, as you
yeah,
say. So it's also just like morally not okay at all. Um, yeah. Hey,
yeah.
Denise from Houston, how are you?
Um, Hi, Denise. Thank you for being here this morning. Robert says I can't take the talk.
I feel
um,
you.
yeah. so, what do you think as a visual storyteller? I have my live show. I
Mhm.
call it the Story Hour, but I'm just finding my groove here. So, what do you think makes for a great storytelling interview with someone? A good
Um,
example of storytelling.
yeah. So for me, I would say I was just kind of finding my way with Honey and Hustle. I had never done anything like that before as a interview-based podcast host. I'd never done anything like that, so I was am still in the same boat, just kind of finding my way. Somebody that I take a lot of great inspiration from is Zane Lowe. Zane Lowe is an interviewer with Apple Music, and he does a lot of the interviews with music artists after they release an album. So really talking with them about how the album was made, and what are some of the things that went into making the album. What are some of the stories that are being told throughout the album, and how was it creating the album and pushing it, and how do they feel now? And his interviewing technique is so unique. It's so beautiful. It's so natural, and it really involves him listening and doing his research and really being receptive to whatever answer he gets. I think he really goes into an interview with an open mind and a path that he wants to take the guest and the viewer on throughout that conversation, right? So it's a very conversation based interview. And I think the best interviews are, whether that's a live show, whether that's a podcast, whether that's a documentary film, the best interviews always feel like conversation. It always feels like, oh, you're not just asking me questions to get to a destination. It's you're asking me questions with the intention of
Yeah.
painting a picture for someone, right? And so to me, that's what makes a really good storytelling interview.
What was his name? The person you were just talking about?
Zane Lowe, Zane.
Mhm.
Yeah.
G A
Z-
O Ganelow.
Lowe, Zane Lowe.
Oh, oh, okay. L-O-U? Uh,
Lowe.
oh, Lowe. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll check them out as an
Yeah.
example. Are there interviewers that inspire you?
Uh, yeah, in addition to Zane Lowe, I've really been loving what Questlove has been doing. He's an incredible creator, and that definitely comes out in his work.
Yeah, I've always
Um,
liked him. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Um, yeah. Thank you, Krista. Robert, I'm sure you're a great storyteller. I had no doubts in my mind. um, but yeah, Questlove, I've been loving a lot of the work that he's been doing. Um, I don't know, this may be a controversial one or it may not be, but Trevor Noah, I think he was a really good interviewer. People often know him for his like kind of off camera, between camera moment monologues. But I do think when he had guests on his show, he was really good at like really guiding the conversation, but also being like open to like allowing people to be themselves and let their personality show a little bit. Um, those are the people that come to mind. I wish I had more women that came to mind, if we're being honest. Amanda Seales has her own like video podcast that she will do sometimes on YouTube. Issa Rae has a sip with Issa Rae, which is like her video podcast, also really good. Um, yeah,
Oh, I
those are the
love
ones.
Issa.
Yeah,
Issa
right.
Rae. I
Yeah,
love
I
her.
love her.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those are the ones that come to mind. Those are the ones that I watch most often. Rich Roll, the Rich Roll podcast. I love his show. Um, yeah, yeah, those are some of my favorite people to
Yeah.
watch. And notice all these people have video interviews, so video podcasts. Those are the ones that I like gravitate more towards. Like I'm not really a audio only podcast listener. So yeah,
Yeah, some people prefer only audio, others prefer video, but there is a bigger push for video podcast. So I
yeah,
think it's a good move because you combine the audio and visual. So I
yeah,
think that really helps to
yeah.
build a better connection with your listeners. Are you familiar with Lisa Hurley and Sharon Hurley Hall?
I'm not.
They
I'm not.
have podcasts and Sharon Hurley Hall. Let me write down. I can't put it in here, can I?
Yeah.
This stream, Lisa Hurley. They're both on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Hurley Hall. I don't think I can put the name in here. I don't know why. Maybe I'll
Mm,
put it in LinkedIn.
okay.
Lisa Hurley and Sharon Hurley Hall.
I love.
And now, Sharon Hurley Hall just released a book about living with racism.
Mm,
Oh, the title, she just recently published it. So you might check that out.
okay.
I'm gonna buy it sometime this month. I just have to get around to buying it.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
it's about
luckily
living
it's the
with
holiday season.
racism and how to cope. Yeah, yeah. So it's a way. I saw her in her TV show Insecure. I love
Yeah.
that TV show. It's hilarious.
It is.
I don't really watch any video podcasts. News. Sometimes it's really hard for me to keep up with
Okay.
video on YouTube because I follow so many people on YouTube already. It's like I have to start cleaning them out. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's just so much
Mm.
content out there. How do you decide what you're going to focus on? Angela, with so much content out there, how do you?
It's really a luck of the draw sometimes. Sometimes I wanna watch more educational content, so get help me technically get better at my skill. Sometimes I just wanna watch something lighthearted. Sometimes I just wanna be a passive watcher, so video podcasts come into play a little bit there. Um, Sometimes I wanna be inspired, so I'll watch, like, other people's short films. I love a good indie short film. Um yeah, it just really depends on the mood that I'm in, but I love that I have so many options, right? Like whatever I'm in the mood for, something out there exists for me to watch. So,
Yeah. What do you think about these Black History Month, Native American Heritage Month? Indigenous people say, no, the special focus on different groups that
mhm.
we have. When it's obviously it's something that should be focused on all year. So, do you have an opinion on those special days, commemoration months and days?
Right. I agree that language is important, right? So by pinning something down to a month or a day can be like pigeonholing it a little bit and really be like really have the opposite effect of maybe what was intended. Um, Uh, but again, I think if you are a person who identifies as part of those populations, then to you, um, it is nothing more than a time to be more intentional with your thoughts and with your actions. And it's not to say that you don't pay attention to it in other parts of the year, but I think ultimately, as I've gotten older, I see it as a chance to learn and be more intentional about learning about certain aspects of my own history and other people's histories, and learning more about how I can be supportive of people within my community and within other communities. So that to me is how I look at it. I try not to look at everything as like, oh, it's a capitalist holiday, and I'm not gonna support this. Like, I think everything in America can be seen that way if you look hard enough, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't have other intrinsic values as well. So I try to look at the good that we can get from certain things. So I don't have any hard opinions about those things, but yeah,
Mhm. Something to think about. Now, do you think minorities in television and film are being better represented now?
I do.
Do
I
you see
do.
an improvement there?
I
No.
do, but I also see that improvement is coming because more people of color own their work, right? It's more people of color writing stories about people of color. There's more people like me who are writing stories and telling stories that they're intimately familiar with. And so we're seeing a resurgence of that because we have more people at the table bringing these stories forward, right? And so I think that's really a beautiful thing. And I think the face of mainstream media has already shifted, but it's going to continue to shift towards these smaller and more intimate and more nuanced and niche stories than what we've seen in the past. I mean, like, um, yeah, that's right, Krista. The value of media is to be able to learn from different cultures and viewpoints. I agree, and I think you're seeing more of that now as it's becoming. I wouldn't even say more socially acceptable, but more creatively acceptable to be uniquely yourself and how you create. Um, and again, that also aligns with more access to capital to tell stories at a greater capacity. So, yeah, I do think it's improving as we have more access to resources to tell our stories.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think I'm seeing slow movement, but I'm kind of impatient. I want to see more
yeah,
representation of different groups, like
yeah,
Native Americans, you know, they
yeah,
we need more representation of them and people with disabilities.
yeah.
They're very it's a very big group of people with all kinds of disabilities. They're having more of a voice now. You know, like the movie Coda with the
Yeah.
deaf actor. She won the Oscar for Best Actor.
Mm,
Um, there's more visibility, but there's still some ways to go. But
yeah,
other groups, yeah. So I'm just a little impatient, you know. But
yeah.
Native Americans, I just learned that there's a new TV show called Alaska Daily on
Okay.
ABC. Have you heard of it?
I haven't heard of it yet.
They're covering the murdered and missing Indigenous women cases.
Okay.
You know, they're
Yeah,
covering that on the show, and I think that's the first time I've ever seen that topic covered
very.
on the show. It's like a main part of the show, and they're investigating one disappearance of one Native girl in in Nupiaq. I can't pronounce in Nupiaq girl in Alaska. It's some remote part of Alaska.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting that they're covering that. I think the writer of the show heard about the story, about what's been happening,
Hmm.
and he wanted to cover it on the show. I think that's a great move. We do need more of that. Um, Not so much focus on white people in TV and film. It's kind of
Yeah.
wearisome, you know. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, this person isn't like me. Where can we see more of ourselves on TV and film, media in general?
Yeah.
So I, I'm a little more pessimistic. It's not moving as quickly as,
As you
you
I
know,
think I think
yeah,
I guess I'm maybe seeing it from a different light, as there was wasn't it like a Korean film that just won, like, it just Parasite that like swept um for some award shows, which is really good. I would love to see more.
Parasite.
Yeah.
Yes, I saw that.
Yeah. And then
Didn't
like the year Moonlight won. I think Moonlight won an Oscar or something like that. So I think we're starting to see like this like reclamation of shows that are different from what we have always had, right? And so I'm excited about that as we continue to see
Yeah.
that, oh, there's value in investing in different perspectives and different narratives. Let's continue to do that. And that's not to say that we'll never hear or see or watch another show that primarily has white people in it. That's definitely not what we're saying. But we're saying that there's more to life than that perspective and that life. So
Yeah. Did you know about Lena Dunham? Her TV, her HBO show Girls. How for a
no.
long time, for many seasons, she only had white people. I
Mm,
mean, these are friends that live in Brooklyn, New York, and there's quite a diverse group of people living in New York, right?
yeah.
So people were complaining, why do you only have white people on your show? And so they finally brought on a black character.
Oh,
And okay, she ends up dating this black character. And I don't feel that was even in character for her because all she hung out with were white people. So
yeah.
it was really weird. It was
Yeah.
Daniel Glover, I believe.
Okay.
Daniel Glover, who has the show Atlanta.
Yeah.
He was on that. Okay. Weird. I really, really. Okay, that's the one show that I hated watching. I hated it so much that I had to watch it. I don't
Yes.
know how to explain it to you, but I just had to watch it and just hate on these people, these characters, and her character was the most annoying of all.
Oh
Okay,
god,
I'm just glad it's over. So,
that's funny. That's
no
hilarious.
more so. Yeah.
Oh man.
So I thought Daniel Glover was in that. I like
Mm,
his show Atlanta a lot. I think it is a terrific show.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I just think it's moving kind of slowly, but that's the pessimist in me.
Yeah.
And obviously, there aren't enough people with disabilities in media either.
Yeah.
That is really especially slow progress there.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
we'll get there at some point, hopefully before the apocalypse comes. Oh.
That's funny. Uh, yeah, hopefully before then. Yeah.
So, Angela, do you have any like tips for people who want to be independent filmmakers and want to enter documentary storytelling? What kind of tips do you have for them?
For me, one of the best things that helped me out was really getting good at defining the type of stories that I wanted to tell because that guided a lot of the relationships that I developed throughout my business, even before I went full time into being a full time entrepreneur. So I think like really getting specific about what you want and not being afraid to be specific and think that, oh, by being this specific, I'm not going to get a lot of people, or people aren't really going to understand, or there's not a big enough audience for this. Um, yes, there is, and really it's really changing your mindset from this is something that I'm good at and I have fun doing, but this is something that I'm good at, have fun doing, and can do effectively for other people, and for different audiences. And so that was kind of the mindset shift that I had to make, that really was helpful in guiding me and the mission of my business and the people that I wanted to serve in my business. And it also guides who you don't want to work with, the kind of projects you won't take on that don't align with your values and your mission. So, really being steadfast in what you want to me is very important. It really is the first step. You have to admit that you want this very badly and know what it's going to take for you to get that.
Yeah, and then probably also matter of having a mentor is helpful
Yeah.
too, right? Did you ever have a mentor?
Not discreetly. I've had multiple people that I've gone to for advice and do still go to for advice. Um, and they're, different levels of formality, with me being able to go to them and ask questions. So I would say having a mentor is great, but ultimately for me, what really made the difference was getting out there and doing the work, right? You can have somebody tell you how to do it and what worked best for them all day, every day. But until you get out there and see what works best for you, it's just like words. It's really not gonna help you that much.
Right, right. That makes a lot of sense. Just get out there and do it. That really applies to most things that we do if we want to learn something new. Just to
Yeah,
get out there and do it, learn by trial and error.
yeah.
Yeah. So I just wanted to thank everyone for. You know what? I think I didn't connect my channels here. That's what it was.
Mm.
I don't know. Who's doing? I don't know what happened there, but Krista says the value. Krista mentioned a video podcast called Impact Theory. Have you heard of it?
I haven't, but I'm gonna check it out. She's been dropping gems. She dropped a couple podcasts.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's the guy Tom Billier. I think. Yeah, she's been around for a while. It's pretty.
Okay.
She's interviewed a lot of interesting people. So
Okay.
yeah, I think I've checked them out before. So
Okay.
it's pretty cool. Okay, so Angela, I just wanted to thank you for being here with me this morning. It was great talking to you. You got me off on a tangent, by the way, talking about representation in
Yeah.
media.
Yeah.
Woo! You could talk all day about that.
Yeah.
That's an all day, uh, forever topic.
Yeah. It is.
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'll be in touch with you after this. And thank you, everyone, for being here with me this morning. And next week, I'm going to have Amy Osap and addiction news. So
Yeah.
now that
Okay.
will be some heavy stuff we're talking about addiction.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the meantime, everyone, have a great rest of your week. And I will see you next week.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.